today. Critics saying that he turned his back on his party with all of this. Earlier today, I sat down with House Speaker Paul Ryan for the story exclusive. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. It's great to have some time to talk with you today. It's great to be here, as always. Yesterday was a busy day. You were over at the White House. When you look at that deal that was struck in the room for the 3-month debt ceiling, some are sizing it up and saying that the president really was speaking to Republican leadership. He was saying that it was a signal to you guys. What do you say to that?
Oh, look, I think what he's trying to do is clear the decks so we can get focused on our big things like tax reform. I've spoken with the president a lot about this, talked to him this morning. He wants to clear the decks so we can basically get our job done and focus on our big issue like tax reform, border security, and the rest. Second point is we're getting hit with 2 hurricanes. We're still dealing with Harvey in Texas, Louisiana. We're just now getting hit with Irma. And he wanted to make this a bipartisan moment. He wanted to make this a bipartisan moment where we weren't fighting each other up in Washington about hurricane aid. He just wanted to get it done, get it out of the way so that aid is flowing to the states that need it right now so that we can go and then focus on things like tax reform. So it's perfectly reasonable and rational why he's doing what he's doing.
But the word was that you were furious about what happened.
No, I wasn't
yesterday.
furious. I have a belief on debt issues that we should, for the credit markets, have longevity on these things. But I completely understand why he was doing what he was doing and why his motivation is we've got hurricane relief, let's make it bipartisan, and let's clear the decks so we can focus on our shared agenda like tax reform.
Mick Mulvaney, your former colleague, was talking to our colleagues at Fox Business, and he was asked, do you think the president's annoyed with his Republican leadership? And this is what he said. Yeah, I think he probably is, and so am I. As an American citizen, I am too.
Well, I can't speak to that. I don't know what Mick and I talk all the time. The point is, in the House, go to didyouknow.gop. We've actually passed more bills in the House for the president and his agenda in this first 6 months of his administration than in the first 6 months of Obama, Clinton, and both Bushes. The House has passed 316 bills. That's a record pace. Now, 260 of them are still in the Senate. The Senate's busy working on judges and appointees and the rest. But the House has been extremely productive. Not just extremely productive. The House has been more productive than any Congress in the modern era.
I think he was mostly talking about health care in terms of his frustration. He went on to say, you know, that everybody's still
We're frustrated too. Like I said, we passed our bill last May
Right.
on repeal and replace, and we were hoping to get it done then. And yes, we too are frustrated that this hasn't gotten done yet. But what I always say to my colleagues, especially in the Senate where this bill didn't go through, if first don't succeed, try again, get back at it. Health care is collapsing. Obamacare is a total failure. We got to keep at it. The House did its job, passed its bill, and we just got to keep at it.
There's also discussion that Chuck Schumer, Senator Schumer, and the president have been talking about doing away with a debt ceiling vote, that it's sort of a show to sort of put Republicans in a difficult spot every few months. Are you in favor of that?
No, I've always thought that this is a good tool. As imperfect as this tool is, I always see this as a good tool for fiscal discipline. And I see this as one of our Article 1 powers, as a constitutional issue, which is it's Congress's prerogative exercising the power of the purse.
So you are not in favor of any
I've always
proposal to
believed,
do away with that?
Yeah, I like the fact that Congress controls the power of the purse, and that gives us opportunities for fiscal discipline.
Yeah. I mean, one of the fiscal discipline issues that I know you talked to the Republican Study Committee about, they really want to make sure that when it comes to tax reform, it's going to be real reform,
Absolutely.
that it's not going to end up just being tax cuts. And I know from talking with you over the years, this has been your passion for a very long time.
I used to chair the Ways and Means Committee before I did this job. And
it was one of the reasons you were reluctant to take this job, if I remember correctly, because it meant so much to you to do that. So now you've got a few months before the end of the year.
Yeah.
What is it going to look like? Tell the American people.
Yeah, well, you can go to the Ways and Means website if you want to get more details. But basically, what we want to do is for families, dramatically simplify the tax code. Give middle-income families a tax cut. But simplify the tax code so much that people can fill out their taxes on a postcard. Clean up the IRS. And then when it comes to businesses, we've got to get tax rates on businesses down. Why? Because we are taxing American businesses at much, much higher rates than our foreign competitors are taxing theirs. And as a result, we're losing jobs, we're losing businesses. The tax code rewards companies to make things overseas, not make things in America. And if you sell a product overseas and make money overseas, you can't bring the money back because of our tax system.
So that's going to take real political courage, and that's going to take the kind of drain the swamp mentality.
It's what I've been fighting for since I got here.
You know, swept in so many Republicans.
That's right.
There's so much riding on that vote, and on that being real reform.
That's right.
So people say, we didn't just get a temporary tax cut and then an assurance that, you know what, actually next year we're going to get a chance for reform. Tell them that that's not what they're going to hear.
That's not what they're going to hear. And by the way, that was the president's motivation with this Hurricane Harvey deal yesterday, which was get this stuff done so that we can go focus on real tax reform for American people. This has not been done, this being real comprehensive tax reform, since 1986. That was a different global economy then than we have now. And as a result, we now as Americans have the worst tax system in the industrialized world. So we got to get this thing right. It is drain the swamp. It's get rid of the special interest carve-outs so we can lower people's tax rates and simplify the system. And that's why what we're trying to do is get us focused on this. And that is why the president did what he did yesterday. And that is why we are so focused on this. And we're so excited to finally have a president of the United States who is here to work with us on doing just that.
Are you concerned, when you hear that he's talking to Senator Schumer about doing away with the debt ceiling vote, that he is sort of looking for a new coalition, that he's frustrated with his Republican leadership, and he's saying, look, I'm going to look around the room and figure out who I can put this together with?
Not really, because I think you expect the president to talk to the other party. I mean, isn't it natural that a president should be speaking with members of leadership of the other party? So that's something to be totally expected. We'll have a disagreement or agreement on various different issues, but I would expect the president of the United States to be talking to leaders of different parties.
So you're not concerned, there was a lot this morning about real backlash. Orrin Hatch was outraged with what happened. A lot of people were. That he turned to them in that room and said, I'm with you guys on this.
Look, I think what happened was this debt limit hit earlier than we expected. You know why? 2 hurricanes. One thing that happened that was unpredicted was Hurricane Harvey, now Hurricane Irma, but also the technology that people use now to apply for their FEMA aid. It's so much faster. We didn't have iPhones when we had Katrina. Now people are using their smartphones to fill out their aid relief, and so that money is going through the door so much faster that they're concerned, FEMA, this is the Federal Emergency Management Administration, they're concerned they're going to run out of money this weekend for hurricane aid.
The president has said 15% on the corporate tax rate many times. Today you said you don't think that's going to happen. He feels very strongly about that number.
He and I talked about it many times. He said get it as low as you possibly can. That's exactly what we're working on, getting it as low as we possibly can. It's all about making the numbers work.
So he's okay with not 15%?
Yeah, he's okay with getting as low as we possibly can. 15 is the goal that he has set out, but we got to make sure that the numbers work. This is about adhering to what we call the budget process. So we're getting these numbers as low as we possibly can.
So you're going to do a lot of carve-outs. You're going to take away loopholes. You're going to take away all of the tax promises that have been made to corporations. So they're going to see a lot of that off their plate as a way to lower their tax rates.
That's exactly right. We're going to get rid of those so we can just lower everybody's tax rates across the board. We think it's simpler, we think it's fair, and we think it's going to grow the economy.
Last question. Reports that Steve Bannon and Mark Meadows are casting about ideas for someone to replace you. What do you say to that?
I don't worry about this stuff at all. Look, when I took this job at the request of our members, I knew it comes with lots of slings and arrows. This is not something I'm worried about or focused on. I'm worried about getting our agenda passed.
If you don't get tax reform passed, would you consider saying